Hello, this is Truth is Scarier Than Fiction, and welcome to the Witcher tier list, where I rank most of the major Witchers from the books and the games, from weakest to strongest. This video will contain books and game spoilers, including the Thronebreaker, so be warned of that. And it will also only be for the CDPR games and the books. That's all I'm going to factor into it. I will not be factoring in the show or anything else like that. To get started, at the F tier, the sole member we have is the Witcher Wannabe. If you don't remember who the Witcher Wannabe is, during Witcher 3, Geralt can find a man posing as a Witcher after he buys a medallion off of a traveling merchant. When Geralt comes across the man, he's struggling to kill a single ghoul in a graveyard and is cowering from it. Obviously, he has very little skill, so he gets put down here at an F. A little above him, we're going to put Leo. Leo is a sort of Witcher from The Witcher 1. Vesemir finds him and takes him in and kind of trains him. Leo goes through a little bit of the Witcher regiment. He eats the herbs and mushrooms that give Witchers some enhanced speed and strength. However, he doesn't go through the full mutations since those are lost. He also is said to have the ability to cast signs. However, he can't in the games as his fingers are broken during the time period where we meet him. Unfortunately, at the end of Witcher 1, spoiler alert, the Witcher 1 prologue, he does get killed by a crossbow bolt. So he gets put down here at a D. Little above Leo is Yad Karadin. Yad is a retired Witcher when you meet him in Witcher 3, and as such, his abilities aren't quite as sharp. You find him along with Lambert after Lambert tracks him down due to the murder of his friend Aiden. Now, you can choose to kill Yad Karadin, in which case the fight is pretty easy, all things considered. Or you can choose to let Lambert kill him and stay out of it, and that is even easier, obviously, for you as Geralt. But Lambert doesn't seem to struggle with him at all, so I'm putting him down here at a D. A little above Yad is Mad Kian. Mad Kian is a Catskill Witcher that Geralt finds during The Witcher 3. He was captured and experimented upon, actually, by a mage, and when Geralt finds him, the Witcher is basically gone mentally and just attacks and fights with Geralt. He gets put down here to C because, again, the fight wasn't very difficult for me. After Kian, we have Berengar. Berengar was a wolf school Witcher who kind of leaves the school prior to the events of Witcher 1. Geralt can find him and fight him later on in Witcher 1. However, personally, I didn't think he was that tough of a fight. Additionally, if you choose to let Berengar live and don't fight him later on, when you fight Azir Javed the mage, Javed is kind of programmed to kill Berengar no matter what happens in the fight. So I'm putting him down here to C since he does end up getting killed. A little above Berengar is Brehyn. Brehyn was known for a massacre, and he appears first in the Seasons of Storms prequel book that Sapkowski wrote. While he probably has some skill with a sword, I'm putting him down here at a C pretty low for a couple of reasons. One, he challenges Geralt to a fight, but when he finds out Geralt actually has his weapons with him, he chickens out of the fight. And two, he does end up getting killed by the Striga later on, at least in the CDPR canon, so putting him down here to C. Then, first, a little above him, we're going to put Ivo at B. Ivo is a sort of middle-of-the-road Witcher, in my opinion. He is a Bear Skull Witcher that appears in the Thronebreaker game. He was hired by Nilfgaard to kill a sort of monster queen, Gurnikora. However, when you find him, he has just returned from a failed attempt to do so. While he does end up failing to kill Gurnikora and ends up leaving afterwards, he does seem to have a pretty good knowledge of fighting, swords, monster biology, and all that. So I'm putting him up here at a B because he does seem pretty knowledgeable. Then we have Ox. Ox is a Viper School Witcher that you can actually end up fighting during The Witcher 2 along with his brother Serret right here. Ox is a B because, in my opinion, the fight with him in the game isn't very difficult. He kind of dies easily, not too easily, but it's not too much of a challenge. However, I'm putting him above some of the other Witchers at a B because during the prequel cinematic in The Witcher 2, it's shown that he was fighting the Wild Hunt and actually killed a lot of their members. Obviously, that takes skill, so I'm putting him up here at a B. I'm putting his brother Serret above him just a little bit. Everything still applies. The fight with Serret isn't that difficult. Serret does kill some Wild Hunt members, which gives him some credit. But the only reason I'm putting him a little bit above Ox is because Serret does end up surviving the encounter with Geralt. Next up, we have Gaetan. Gaetan gets a B. You find Gaetan in The Witcher 3 after he massacres almost an entire village. Now, while this is obviously bad, it is a bit impressive considering that he was stabbed with a pitchfork in the back that almost killed him just prior to massacring the village. So even with, a pitchfork in the back bleeding out, Gaetan still manages to kill a bunch of armed men, which fairly impressive. Additionally, if you choose to spare Gaetan, he lets you go to his hideout to take some loot, and you do find some impressive monster trophies on his wall, which takes skill. However, personally, I didn't think his boss fight was very difficult either, so I'm putting him up here at a B. Then, a little bit above Gaetan, we're going to put Vesemir. I think Vesemir's best quality is his knowledge. Obviously, he is the sort of oldest Witcher, at least that we encounter in the games, and he is very smart. When the Battle of Kaer Morhen happens, if you look closely during the cutscene, you can kind of see him strategically fighting, even though they're heavily outnumbered and stuff. When Ciri's initially knocked down, he has the presence of mind to put her sword back in her scabbard, and then he chooses to push Ciri away from the Wild Hunt instead of defending himself, which is pretty noble of him. However, obviously, he is very old and a little bit slower than the other Witchers, so I'm only putting him at a B. Then we have Lambert. Lambert is sort of the brash, younger Witcher. He's a bit inexperienced from what you see in the games. He seems to have, he does have an anger issue. However, he is shown to be a very skilled fighter. You help him, obviously he kills Yad-Karadin like I mentioned before. He helps you kill a lot of the Wild Hunt members, helps you kill the old Spear Tip, which is a giant troll in I think it's just a giant, Cyclops maybe, in the cave at Kaer Morhen. The only reason I don't put him higher is because there is actually a way for Lambert to die in the games. If you don't bring Keira Metz to Kaer Morhen and you don't help him out enough, he can actually die against the Wild Hunt. Little bit above Lambert, I'm going to put one of my favorite Witchers, very underrated, Cohen. Cohen is a Griffin School Witcher who becomes close to the Wolf School in the books. He does end up dying against Nilfgaard at the Battle of Brenna, but from what we know of his skills, he was very good as a swordsman, and was also stated to be extremely fast when he was training Ciri. At least from what I read, I thought he was a very intelligent Witcher as well, and a nice guy. Doesn't count for the tier list, but he was a very nice person from what we see in the books. Only reason I don't put him higher is because we don't see a lot of his abilities. I don't believe he ever mentions killing any monsters or anything, and he does end up dying against overwhelming odds at the Battle of Brenna. Then we have the Mysterious Assassin. The Mysterious Assassin is an unnamed Viper School Witcher we see at the end of Witcher 1. Geralt catches him attempting to assassinate a king, and while we don't actually end up fighting him since it's all shown in a cinematic, he does seem extremely skilled. Even after he very stealthily takes out a bunch of armed guards, he still has the strength left to fight off Geralt, and he takes, I believe, a Blast of Ard pretty well, Geralt kind of hits him with it at close range, and he pretty much shrugs it off. In fact, the only reason I think Geralt beats him is because he throws a bag of coins at him, which is enough to distract him and sort of throw him off balance, which allows Geralt to kill him. Additionally, he was also at the battle with the Wild Hunt, where they killed a lot of the Wild Hunt's members, which is impressive. Then, last one for tier A, I'm going to put my man Eskel. Eskel is another Wolf School Witcher who was sort of brothers with Geralt. It's said that they were around the same age and actually appeared similar before the obviously before Eskel got scarred and before Geralt went through the mutations that gave him all white hair and pigmentation. In the games, from what we see, he's very skilled. He 1v1s Caranthier, which is a very tough general of the Wild Hunt in Witcher 3, and while he ends up losing to them and needs to be saved by Ciri, he does seem to have a great deal of skill. Finally, for tier S, the first one I'm going to put down is Erland of Larvik. Erland is a major character in the pen and paper RPG book, where it kind of expands on his life. He was one of the first Witchers ever, and a member of the Order of the Witchers. Eventually, after some infighting, they had a sort of civil war with Arnagad of the Bear School, but Erland ends up defeating him in combat, which is pretty impressive since he was another very strong Witcher. And then he goes on to found the Griffin School. After that, it's said he accomplished a bunch of different feats, kills a bunch of different monsters, including a brown dragon, which is very rarely done, at least from what I've seen in the lore. So pretty impressive. He gets up here at an S. Next to him is Letho. I think the one point against Letho is that Geralt does end up having to save him in the cinematic prequel to The Witcher 2. However, besides that, Letho is extremely strong, as you can see by his giant muscles. He beats Geralt in the Witcher 2 game. He orchestrates multiple assassinations. I think one of the things he mentions in the games is that most people look at him, giant mountain of muscle, and they think he's a dumb oaf, when in reality he's extremely smart. He sort of strategically takes out enemies, like you see in the cinematic where he attacks the king on the boat. He freezes half of them with a with a Northern Wind bomb, and then goes on to finish off the rest, which takes skill. He was also, again, at the fight with the Wild Hunt, and you can actually recruit him as an ally in Witcher 3, where he helps out at the Battle of Kaer Morhen, where he's very effective. Strong, great fighter, decent knowledge-wise, an extremely smart tactician and fighter. One of my favorite Witchers, I'm putting him up here. Next to Letho is going to be Ciri. Ciri is sort of a glass cannon. She's obviously has the most magical ability out of all the Witchers, including even Eskel, who is said to have great magical ability for a Witcher. She can travel through time and space, and even, without her magical powers, she's still a formidable fighter. It was said in the books that she goes through the Witcher herbs and mushrooms, which, like I mentioned before, gives her a bit of enhanced strength and speed. Not as many as the other Witchers, but a decent amount. Yeah, the only issue is that she is, again, still mostly human. She doesn't have quite the strength or speed. I think even in the games, they show her getting defeated in hand-to-hand combat. I think one of the underrated parts of her is how crafty she is as a fighter. In one of the books, she ends up putting on ice skates to give her a tactical advantage over some of the men she's fighting, which is it was a pretty cool moment, and it is a very smart move. The only Witcher I'm going to put ahead of her is, of course, Geralt. Geralt is said to be, even in the books, a very good Witcher, an obsessive fighter. It's mentioned that he spends almost all of his free time training, studying. He has incredible amount of knowledge about different monsters. In one of the books, Baptism of Fire, he even manages to defeat a monster, not really, but kind of drive it away due to his knowledge of how the monster reacted to metallic sounds. And then obviously in the games he's extremely strong, especially by the end of Witcher 3, where he goes through the additional mutations. He can take a lot of damage. He has great mastery of signs, potions, everything like that. And then of course he also has killed a bunch of monsters. He's fought and defeated the Wild Hunt. He's defeated some of the most powerful mages in the world. There can't be anybody else but him to put up here at the top. Anyway, that's all for this video. As always, I will have my links to social media and Patreon in the description. I am a little bit busy right now, so I wanted to make a sort of quick video to put out there. I will be hopefully working on more videos, including more Witcher videos soon. I am trying to finish up sort of rereading and replaying some of the games before I make more videos on it. That's all for this video, and I will see you in the next one.